Today's topic is the modern use of compound words. If you've got 5 minutes, I've got 5 tips to help you to use them accurately. Choosing the right word to convey the exact meaning that you want to get across to your readers is an important part of writing these days. But knowing the form of the word to use divides the amateurs who don't care about it from the pros who do care. And I want to tell you that editors, agents, and readers do care, because if you don't use the right form of a word, even if it's the word, you may not convey the correct meaning. And compound words are one of those kinds of words that fall into the category of confusion. A few months ago, one of my regular viewers suggested that an episode on the topic of compound words would be helpful, and I thank you for that suggestion, and here we are today talking about it. Using compound words can be tricky, but it's also essential because you're going to find situations where you don't have a choice that's exactly the right word. But they need to be grammatically correct, and they need to be presented correctly in order for people to understand your meaning and for you to not look like a complete amateur who's half illiterate. Now let's look first at what a compound word is. And this is the Cambridge Dictionary definition. 2 or more words linked together to produce a word with a new meaning. Now they do come in different parts of speech, but generally speaking, we have compound nouns, we have compound verbs, and we have compound adjectives. And these compound words are created by combining sometimes a noun with a noun with a verb with an adjective, and so on. There are various different combinations. We can't go through every single permutation and combination, but you'll get the picture before the end of the episode, I think. It can often be confusing for a writer to know the proper form to use, and it's certainly confusing for the reader if you don't use the right one. So here are some tips to help you. Tip number 1, understand that there are 3 forms of compound words. There are closed compound words, where the 2 words are together, there's no space between them. Things like notebook and blackboard are examples. There are hyphenated compound words, like mother-in-law and high speed, where the words are connected by a hyphen. And there are open compounds, like ice cream and post office, where the 2 words work together as one, but there is a space between them. The problem becomes how to know which of these forms to use. So, tip number 2 is use context to determine the form. And you begin by checking with a dictionary. A dictionary will often give you the updated version of a word, and sometimes these can change. For example, when email first began to be used, it was hyphenated, e-mail. Now, the proper form of the word is email. Now, that may sound like, well, e isn't really a word. Is that a compound word? But it's an example of how the language evolves. I want to remind you that just because a word sounds like it's 2 words together doesn't necessarily mean it's a compound word. For example, the word because seems to be 2 words, be and cause. No, it's not. It just happens to be the word because. It is not a compound word, so that's something to keep in mind as well. The second way you can do this is to follow standard rules. After you look in a dictionary, then you follow the standard rules. For example, nouns can be closed. Toothbrush, for example, is an example. They can be hyphenated. Self-esteem is one. Or they can be open, like living room, although today one of your grammar checkers might tell you that living room is all 1 word. It isn't really, it's 2, but both are considered to be acceptable in today's contexts. Adjectives, which are interesting in terms of their standard use, compound adjectives that come before a noun are hyphenated. A well-known author, for example, that's hyphenated. And they're not hyphenated if they come after the noun. The author was well-known. Well-known would not be hyphenated in that case. So that's why it's so confusing. Tip number 3, use hyphens for clarity, but don't over-hyphenate. Quite often, the hyphen can help to avoid confusion. For example, if you say that someone is a small business owner and you use a hyphen, you mean that the owner has a small business. But if you don't use a hyphen and you say a small business owner, you mean that the owner of the business was small. totally different meanings. Knowing when to use a hyphen is extremely important in that case. And as I mentioned in the earlier tip, this goes along with it in terms of using adjectives. If it comes before the noun, it's hyphenated. If it comes after the noun, it is not. My father is a good-natured man. My father is good-natured. Different uses. But you don't hyphenate things which are common words like childcare center. Putting in a hyphen between child and care in that instance is over hyphenation. One of the terms that has come up very frequently in my own writing is healthcare, because healthcare institutions, healthcare used to be hyphenated. It is not hyphenated anymore, but if it comes before the word as an adjective, it's all one word now, healthcare. Healthcare institutions, but we have healthcare. Healthcare is not hyphenated when it comes after. Tip number 4, be consistent when using a style guide. Now, it depends upon who you're writing for and what you're writing. There may be a style guide involved. For example, if you are writing academic work or any kind of nonfiction work, there may have a style guide, the publisher might. For example, the APA Style Guide, the Chicago Manual of Style, MLA. For those of us who are older, we're also familiar with Turabian's Style Guide. If they have a style guide, then you use it. Some publishers actually follow one. The Chicago Manual of Style seems to be one which is followed by a lot of trade publishers. If they don't follow one of those guides, they may very well have their own. You just have to know what it is. If not, you almost have to create your own style guide. The key is consistency. Be consistent in your usage of compound words. And tip number 5, pay attention to changes in meaning. And this should be clear throughout some of the other tips that the meaning can change depending upon the form of the compound word. For example, the word breakup and the words breakup, which go together as well as compound words, mean two different things. As a noun, breakup means separation. But break up as two words means to divide something. And how about the word makeup? Makeup altogether means a cosmetic, right? But to make up something, two words, quite different. So if you don't use the right form of the word, you're going to convey the wrong meaning. Now, my little bonus, just a couple of things that people get wrong a lot. Never mind. Never mind is two words. It is not never mind altogether. A lot is two words. It's never A-L-O-T altogether. Those words are wrong. They just don't exist, actually. And then there are other words that mean different things depending upon the form of them. And I'm not going to go through every one of them and give you the definition. I'm going to suggest you go to a dictionary and look them up. However, here are some that you might consider. Altogether versus altogether. Every day versus every day. Anytime versus anytime. A while versus a while. Sometime versus sometime. Look them up. They're quite different, but they're all correct. So it's not always clear. So use a dictionary and be consistent. Those are the most important things that you can do within a piece of writing of yours, is to be consistent. And look them up to make sure you're not confusing anybody by your use of the term. I hope this helped. Happy writing. Subscribe to Write, Fix, Repeat. And maybe I can help you improve your writing knowledge and skills. 5 tips at a time.